Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope everyone is doing great. So before anything else, I want to introduce myself. I'm Annalisa Latras, and for today, I'm going to talk about or discuss about communicative language teaching and process-oriented pedagogy. So these are the topics assigned to me. So we'll have this outline of the discussion. Number one, we will have the overview of these approaches. Number two, their definition. And of course, number three, their nature and characteristics. And I will be providing you with some examples. And we will be talking about these advantages and disadvantages of these approaches. And we'll have the summary to get the gist of the overall report and, of course, the references. So now let's have a quick background on the creation of communicative language teaching approach. So communicative language teaching approach, or widely known as CLT, is developed during the 1970s as a response to the limitations of the traditional grammar based methods such as the grammar translation and the audiolingual method. This is influenced by the linguist Noam Chomsky, who emphasized the importance of communicative competence. What's communicative competence? Communicative competence, it refers to knowing how to use the language appropriately in different contexts. And this approach also is supported by researches in second language acquisition that proves that real interaction, is highly effective, no? More effective in learning a language rather than just mere memorization. Later on, we will know more. We will deepen our understanding on this approach. Now, let's have a quick background on the creation of the second approach, which is the process-oriented approach. It originated from the cognitive psychology and constructivist learning theories in the 1970s and 1980s. It was developed as a reaction to the product-oriented approach, which focused on the final outcomes. And this approach was emphasized by some scholars such as Donald Murray and Janet Emig, which they argue that writing and language learning are both a recurring process which involves planning, drafting, revising, and reflecting. This approach gained popularity in composition studies, and writing instruction later, no, influence broader language teaching practices. So both approaches, the CLT and the the process-oriented approach, shaped by shifts in education and psychology, which prioritizes active learning, student engagement, and real-world application. So, communicative language teaching approach really marks the beginning of a major paradigm shift within language teaching during the 20th century, in which its effect is still evident up to this day. So, the question is, what is really communicative language teaching approach? So, by definition, communicative language teaching is an approach that aims to achieve communicative competence rather than linguistic competence through interaction, or to be specific, learner interaction. So, this strategy in language teaching is based on the philosophy that in order to learn a language, one must practice using that language to communicate meaning to others. So now, what are the key features or the characteristics of communicative language teaching approach? So CLT has these following features. Number one, it is communication focus. Of course, since language in this approach is learned through speaking, listening, reading, and writing using authentic or real life situations. Number two, it is task based learning. Since activities using this approach involves active role playing, debate, discussion, solving real life problems, and encourages critical thinking among students. So it encourages the use of the language. Number three, the integration of the four macro skills: reading, writing, listening, and speaking are thought as one rather than separately. And number four, it gives emphasis on fluency rather than just accuracy. So in that manner, um, mistakes are seen to be are seemed to be part of the learning process rather than obstacles. And lastly, it is learner centered. No, since in this approach, this teacher act as a facilitator only, not just dominating the lessons, but rather he or she allows the student to discover their fullest potential through communicating with others. So now, what are the examples of activities under communicative language teaching approach? So the very first one is common, and I believe each one of us had this done in our respective classroom. So this is not new to all of us. Number one is the role playing. And this activity, students enact certain specific roles and acting out situations that they might encounter in real life situations. So, through these activities, it enables students to practice relevant vocabulary, but it also improves their ability to respond in specific situations using the target language. Another example under the communicative language approach is the information gap activities. So, what are these? So, these activities are designed to encourage students to communicate in order to complete a certain task. So, in these activities, maybe one student has this information and the others do not. So, what are they gonna do? They have to communicate really using the target language in order to complete that missing task that they are assigned to. So these activities fosters collaboration skills, communication skills, question forms, vocabularies, and the functional language. So another example of activities under the CLT is the group discussions. I believe group discussion, it is a powerful way to foster or to uplift the communicative competence among our students. In these group discussions, we can have a variety of topics from the students' experiences, cultural norms, issues, values, current trends, anything that will boost the interest of our students. And we can facilitate learning in these group discussions by providing um, prompt questions or guiding questions in order for the communication to start. What I really like about group discussion is that it does not only improves the speaking and the listening skills of the students, but I think it promotes critical thinking and the ability to articulate their thoughts clearly using the target language. And group discussions also are the excellent way to create a dynamic and an interactive classroom environment, I believe. So last example that I will be giving is the interactive games. But don't get me wrong, there are a lot of activities under CLT. So ito lang yung provide ko because I believe these are the major examples of activities under CLT. So interactive games, so we can start from a simple activities down to the more complex activities. So it depends upon our learners' proficiency level, age, and the learning objectives. But see to it that our interactive games should be fun and engaging, in the sense that students really tend to enjoy and interact with one another, and that learning is not put at stake. So now let's move on to the advantages of CLT. There are a lot of advantages under CLT, but I'll be mentioning some. Okay, number one, CLT focus on communication. course. Since CLT emphasizes real life communication, it enables our learners to develop the practical use of the language skills. Number two, the authentic use of language. Since our learners are engaged in meaningful and relevant communication, so they promote fluency and accuracy. Number three, it is learner centered. Why? It's because CLT encourages active participation and collaboration among learners, which fosters autonomy and motivation. And next one, it is error correction. What is this? It views errors as a natural part of the learning process of the students. So it gives opportunities to students to correct themselves rather than just monitoring whether they commit mistakes in sentence construction or whatnot. And then the language fluency. What is it? It prioritizes fluency and accuracy, as what I've mentioned earlier. So it enables our learners to gain confidence in using the language spontaneously. And lastly, it is engaging and enjoyable. CLT incorporates interactive and dynamic classroom activities, right? So it makes the language learning process enjoyable and meaningful among our learners. While CLT has a numerous advantages, it is important to note that CLT has a potential disadvantages. And what are those disadvantages? Number one, CLT has insufficient focus on grammar. Since I've mentioned earlier, they are more focused on fluency rather than accuracy. So, students or learners may need more instruction and practice in the formal aspects of the language, which can impact their overall language proficiency. Number two, it is time consuming. CLT often requires extended periods for interactive activities and group discussions to happen. So, as a result, covering a comprehensive curriculum may be challenging with the limited time constraints, especially in high risk testing environments. Number three, the limited use of the target language. In this approach, students tend to use their native language rather than the target language in communicating. Number four, there might be a difficult in assessing individuals' progress since CLT is more on a collaborative activities and real life communication process. It makes it difficult to assess individual progress among our students. Next, the role of a teacher as a facilitator. It may be challenging to some teachers to act as a facilitator, especially those who are used to the traditional teaching approach. Next one is the inadequate preparation for academic writing. Since CLT is more focused on the oral communication, so result might be learners have limited opportunities to develop their academic writing skills. So they may need help in transitioning to educational to formal writing context. And lastly, the classroom management complexities. These might be demanding, exhausting to the role of the teacher. Since CLT is interactive in nature, no, it is difficult for a teacher to handle a diverse, large class or groups with varying proficiency levels. So, ensuring the equal participation among our learners or maintaining the discipline is challenging, is really challenging under this. So, as a teacher, implementing or integrating this kind of approach in our classroom setup, we need to really be careful in the implementation, and then we should balance our strategies to other teaching approaches and make sure that it is tailored to the specific needs of our learners and the educational context. Since I only have few seconds left, I know there might be gaps in the discussion. You have things to have clarifications on, so we can have that on the face-to-face discussion. For now, thank you for listening to my virtual presentation of my topic. I hope you learned something. And for the summary, I will just flash the slides here and the references as well. Thank you and God bless everyone.